Good morning, folks, and welcome back to our midweek devotion. It is Wednesday. It's a beautiful day outside. And actually, I should have gone outside and recorded this video today. It's just easy to get things set up in here, and so sometimes I don't bother moving the tripod and books and various things around. But hopefully, in coming weeks, we'll continue to have this beautiful weather. I'll get outside and record some, try and get out about, and even just other places, in the church and on the church grounds. But anyway, it's great to be coming back with another Wednesday devotion for you. Today, I do have several announcements I want to cover, and then we'll just do a quick devotion again from my friend Simon's book, Choose Life. And and then we'll close in prayer. So let me start with the announcements, just to make sure that everybody gets these. So tonight we have our Wednesday fellowship and teaching. We're still in our Anglicanism 101 series that'll go on for about 2 more weeks beyond this. And it's been a wonderful series, kind of getting folks back to the roots of who we are, what we believe as Anglicans. As when we, went through the Reformation in the 1500s, and the Church of England was formed under, at that point, Archbishop of Canterbury, and then kind of evolved from there to become the Episcopal Church in the United States. And then later how we broke away from the Episcopal Church in the United States and formed the Anglican Church in North America as well. So we're kind of covering all that history. We've covered any number of things from the early teachings of the church up through Reformation. We just wrapped up 39 articles in these last week, and tonight we're going to get into some of the prayer book kind of design and differences through the years and where we're at now with our 2019 prayer book. It's been a fun course. And really one that I've enjoyed. I think folks that have been coming have enjoyed as well. But that meets tonight at 6 to 7:30. And then Friday, we have our grandparents in prayer. That's from 10 to 11 in the church. It's a wonderful time. I would encourage you, grandparents out there, to set some time aside in prayer for the future generations, for the situations that the kids are living in today. The pressures of society around us are tough. And it's so different than anything we've known in in previous generations. And I worry that it's only going to get harder for future generations. So we really need to commit time to prayer for those future generations. Also coming up this Sunday is the first Sunday of the month, which means we will have our family service and potluck, 5 o'clock over in Scardon Hall. So we'll have our regular 8 o'clock service in the morning. We'll have a regular 10 o'clock service in the morning. And then at 5 o'clock, we'll gather for a contemporary service, potluck dinner afterwards, and then also youth group meets afterwards as well. So parents of our youth group age kids know that right now what we're working on, as we've tried to adjust schedules, is just combining that service as kind of the preliminary part of some of our worship time together, and then having that go to dinner, and then straight into our youth group time. So join us for that. Church women, there is a short meeting for you all between the 8 o'clock and the 10 o'clock service this Sunday. And church men, we have a gathering this Thursday night. So I went out of order a little bit on that. But Thursday night, men, we've got a gathering here at the church. Hopefully you've RSVP'd. I think Erwin is cooking some ribs for us, and we're going to talk about some small projects we can do locally, and kind of gearing up for some projects as well that we want to be able to take on here at the church, as well as some out in the community. So those things. Now the church women are gathering, like I said, between the 8 and 10 o'clock services over in the vestry room, and that's largely to discuss some of the coordination for 2 events we have the end of the month, beginning of June, and that is our Pentecost picnic, which will be outside on Pentecost Sunday at the Harrisons again, like we did last year, and that'll be a potluck picnic afterwards. And then the following week is our bishop's visit, and that is here at the church. 1 service at 10 o'clock. Bishop Lawrence will be here with us as Bishop Emeritus, and he'll be joining us for worship and preaching that day. And the lobster the lobster dinner is that Friday night prior. I believe that's June 2nd. And so signups are beginning to take place now for that. You can call the church, and Marianne and Don Holmes are hosting that again. So anyway, a lot of stuff coming up in these next few weeks. And just want to make sure everybody kind of has those things on their radar. Let's jump into this devotion. Again, every once in a while, I pick up Simon's book a couple times a week usually, and I just read through it and I think, man, like that was what I needed to hear today. And today he talks about um, God being safe or being dangerous, and how we often try to kind of create this mindset of being um, too safe with in our relationship with God. Um, anyway, he references a friend of his who wrote a book called "Your God Is Too Safe," and in that book, it insists that God is actually not safe at all, but actually very dangerous. But there's something to be more fearful of, and that's not falling into His hands. Rather than worrying about falling into His hands and being either too safe or too dangerous, the greater fear should be not to live a life with Christ. Um, and he references then that kind of the idolization of Mary, which came about, in the Catholic tradition. Much of that actually came about because God was seen as too angry and too cruel. And throughout parts of the Old Testament, we can see little pieces of that, glimpses of that, in various things that God says and God does. And so there was a need for a more gentle, a tender, a motherly character. And so Mary, as Jesus's mother, became that person. But there's, of course, some false teachings and some of that as well, elevating her to almost a divine status. And so he writes, in Protestantism, I think we've simply substituted Mary with a safe God. But the biting irony is that neither the safe God nor the tyrant God are the real God. The God who truly is, who seeks you and me, who desires our holiness, is far more loving and comforting than the safe God that we imagine. And the true God is far more fierce and fearsome than the bullying or pestilent God of our imaginations. His anger is not irritability, it's the distillation of his justice, his hatred of evil. It's what we would want, even demand, from a good God. And again, we look through the Old Testament, we see times where God is very challenging and does strike fear into a lot of people. But when we're on his side, that is a good thing for us. And so living into relationship with him, falling into his hands, is actually very important, because then we experience that safety. But that safety can't become a simple complacency or familiarity leading to the point of contempt. We need to spend time with God in some of those situations that might be dangerous, so that we learn to fully rely on him. And it got me thinking about, just again, some of the missions experiences I've had, some of the risks that we've had to take in ministry, in seminary, and in the mission field, where you're saying, okay, God, you've got this. I am fully trusting in you. Years ago, there was those WWJD bracelets that came out. There was also some came out that said frog, FROG. It was fully reliant on God. And I think when we live that way, is when we begin to see that we are safe in the midst of danger by relying on God. And again, I share that with you because there are times and even situations in my life, and I think probably in all of yours as well, where we think, oh, I've got this. We need to say, no, it's not I've got this, it's God's got this. And we need to live reliant on him in all that we do. And so sometimes that means being a little dangerous, in the sense of taking steps, not unnecessary risk, but taking steps to be more reliant on him in what we do. Anyway, I thought that was a powerful message. It was certainly one that I needed to hear. And I thought, to close in prayer, there was two prayers I wanted to use. The first is written by Thomas Kempis, and it's included in the prayer book. It's prayer 78 if you follow along with those at all. And it's to please God rather than men. And again, I thought, in thinking about kind of following God into danger, so to speak, that means not being complacent. It also means not worrying so much about the risk of pleasing others as much as it means worrying about the risk of pleasing God. Excuse me. So let's close in that prayer, and then after that one, I'm gonna use the prayer for watchfulness written by Lancelot Andrews, which again is just one that reminds us that we need to be strengthening that relationship with the Lord so that we are ready when the time comes that he returns. So let's pray. Our God, in whom we trust, strengthen us not to regard overmuch who is for us or who is against us, but to see to it that we be with you in everything we do. And thou, whom with thine own mouth hast told us that at midnight the bridegroom shall come, grant that the cry, the bridegroom cometh, may sound evermore in our ears, that so we be never unprepared to meet him, or forgetful of the souls for whom he died, for whom we watch and pray. Oh, and save us, O Lord. Amen.